Mr. Ben Morley is appointed Department for Business and Trade Thailand, or DBT Country Director since August 2021, a chartered engineer. He previously held technology and leadership focused roles in the private sector, both for large multinationals and as a CEO and COO of numerous startups. So I would like to invite Mr. Ben Morley to give a presentation regarding the United Kingdom and Thailand's joint efforts to nurture innovation to realize a circular economy. Please join me to welcome Mr. Ben Morley onto the stage.
Okay, good afternoon, good morning, depending where you are in the world. It's lovely to be here. My name is Ben Morley, as has been introduced. I am the Country Director for the Department for Business and Trade here in Thailand at the British Embassy. But I also do have a background in science, innovation and tech, as was alluded to. So today I'm going to give you a brief overview of the UK's ecosystem for developing science into innovation, into products and services that we all use, because that's really what this is all about in the end. It's about actually turning some of that basic research into the products and services that we use. But how do we do that? Because it's not actually that easy. It does not happen by magic. So I'm going to give it a bit of an overview about how the UK tries to do that. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the opportunities for international science and innovation collaboration. Okay, so the first thing to say from the really big picture, let's go really kind of zoom out and look at what the UK is trying to do in terms of R&D. And we have a commitment in the UK to increase investment in research and development to 2.4% of GDP by 2027. That is actually the OECD average for R&D investment. And that's not just from the government, that is the private sector. A very, very large part of the R&D that's done is from the private sector. And that is the same here in Thailand and the world over. So it's a really, really important thing to do about how, what government puts in is that then matched by what the private sector puts in. So the government has made the commitment to increase R&D funding to £22 billion per year by 24-25. And by doing so, to raise both domestic and international business investment into UK R&D. So it's a really, really big commitment, and a really big commitment from the UK government to science, innovation and research. So you may or may not know that the UK is a very world-leading place for science and innovation. We have a lot of world-leading universities, 4 of which are in the top 20. 4 of the world's top 20 universities are in the UK. And we really do punch again above our weight on articles and citations. One of the statistics I love to kind of talk about is 15% of the world's most highly cited papers come from the UK. And that's less than 1% of the world's population producing 15% of the world's most highly cited research. So we really, really do punch above our weights. And we have lots of strength in a huge range of industries and pharmaceuticals, aerospace, AI, creative economy, quantum and fintech now emerging. And we're home to some of the biggest and best businesses in the world. And we have a commitment to net zero by 2050. So lots of big ambitions in this space. And how do we do that? So some of the key elements is we create a really supportive ecosystem, which I'll talk about a bit more today. We talked about those universities, and then also the innovative businesses that take on the science and research that's done in our excellent universities and try and commercialize that. And we create a really good environment, both in our tax incentives, our enterprise investment schemes for investors, and also our incubators, our IP regulations. They all create an environment that helps turn ideas and innovations into products and services that can be successful at a global scale. So this is all kind of, we talked about that commitment to 2.4% of GDP by 2027. This just kind of starts to show, some of the strategies that the UK government's putting in place. Post the pandemic, we had the Build Back Better strategy. We also had the UK Innovation Strategy. But the thing I want you to kind of look at just on this slide is the increase in R&D funding that has been going on for a number of years now, since 2018 through to 2021-22, and we're going to go beyond this to that 22 billion by 2024-25. And a large part of this is what's called UK Research and Innovation, and I'll talk about that as well, but other public R&D budgets as well, and those contributions to the EU programs as well. So, a continual increase in R&D funding from the government, and one that will continue to grow in the years to come. Let's just talk a little about UKRI. And so UKRI, some of you may be familiar with, some of you may not be, but UKRI is one of the biggest and most principal sort of parts of the system when it comes to how the government, how the UK government actually supports research and innovation. And it's made up of 9 research councils, one of which I've kind of brought out a little bit more because I'll talk about that in a bit more detail about the commercialization of research. But research councils covering science and technologies, engineering, physical sciences, medical research, and a whole bunch of different other ones that invest over £7 billion a year at the minute in research and innovation. And that funds university academic research, but it also starts to fund sort of that business commercialization. And that's the bit where Innovate UK really sort of champions and leads. So Innovate UK is the UK's national innovation agency. It's around 600 people. It's responsible for investing around 1.3 billion per year. And what it does is it typically funds businesses, typically in partnership with a university or an academic centre, to actually try and commercialise some of that research that's done. So businesses, they're typically business-led consortiums, approach Innovate UK in various different fields, including circular and green economy, seeking funding to help commercialise their research. And I'll talk about why that's important in a second. Beyond Innovate UK, we move into sort of the scaling system. So Innovate UK helps businesses to prove that academic research is valuable at a commercial business scale. But then how do you go beyond that to actually turn maybe the lab idea into a full-scale business enterprise? That's quite expensive. It's quite risky. And so one of the ways that this is done is through the UK's catapult network. So these catapults help bridge the gap between perhaps a lab-based or a small business demonstrator to something at real scale. And I think a really good example of this is in a manufacturing process. Let's take 3D printing, for example. So if you have a new idea as an aerospace company to 3D print a particular component, it can be incredibly expensive to invest in the machinery, the training to use that machinery, to test a component, build a component, which may ultimately fail. It may not work. So businesses perhaps don't invest in that machinery. They don't invest in that training. And one of the catapult networks, the high-value manufacturing catapult, helps businesses to actually prove at scale that things can be manufactured, repeatedly manufactured to quality and consistency, and trains people how to do that. Okay, so that's the kind of an idea of how businesses can scale across various different areas, including cell and gene therapy, at scale across cities with the Connected Places catapult, compound semiconductors. So this is semiconductors with different rare earth elements added into them, and it's a way of testing what is done and how those things can scale, and a whole bunch of other ones, including satellite applications, offshore renewables, energy systems, for example. But it's all available online if you want to go and have a look at these sorts of things. Finally, one of the really important bits of the innovation ecosystem is the private sector. It's the private sector investment in terms of venture capital, angel investment, and other sorts of sources of funding, including corporate venture. And I'm really pleased to say that the UK is the leading country for venture capital in Europe between 2017 and 2019. And you can see the figures there, so I won't go through them, but you can see the sort of different scales, really pulling upon that London centre of excellence in finance. And that continued through to 2020, where venture capital in the UK stood at 8.8 billion. And that's more than France and Germany combined. So we have quite we could talk about deep pools of capital. We do have quite a lot of capital available through the City of London and other financial places like Edinburgh and Manchester and elsewhere. So really good to access that. And how it all fits together. So those of you who are involved in innovation and science are probably familiar with the valley of death analogy, i.e. at the low TRL levels, 1 to 3, the government is there to help fund science and the basic science. And at the higher levels, once things are proven and de-risked, the private sector typically comes in and is very happy to invest in things that are just going to be successful. Because we'd all love that, wouldn't we? We would love to invest in things that are just going to work, they're just going to make money. But it doesn't work like that. It's not as easy as that. So UKRI sits there with the research councils funding at the sort of TRL, maybe 1 to 4-ish level. Innovate UK tries to bridge that valley of death in terms of TRL maybe 4 to 6 or 7. And then the catapults and also government loans, Innovate UK loans, and of course private equity sit there trying to then commercialize and scale different things. And what I should have also said is that all of this support, in terms of, let me just go back to this slide, all of this support, particularly from the Innovate UK side, is available to any business that is set up in the UK. And as long as the majority of the R&D is actually done in the UK, it is available. And I got this question a lot when I used to work for Innovate UK. I used to get Japanese companies saying, am I able to access Innovate UK funding? The answer is yes. If you are set up in the UK, if you're incorporated in the UK, you can access all of this. Okay, it doesn't matter what nationality owns the business. What matters is where's the R&D done. And as long as it's done in the UK, it is actually acceptable to be a foreign-owned business operating in the UK, and you have full access to all of this support, including the Catapult network and everything else alongside it as well. So let's talk about the international element. So why is global collaboration important? We live in a global world. No one has a monopoly on ideas. No one has a monopoly on innovation or science. And global R&D brings, stronger, better ideas and relationships to maturity. And we're also really, we've said that no country or company has all the answers. So it's really, really important, particularly for the UK, to access and work globally. And that's something that the government's really keen to do through partnership funds like the International Science Partnership Fund, or the ISPF. And this is a follow-on to those funds you might be familiar with, the Newton Fund and the GCRF. And it's aligning with the UK's commitment to build strategic science partnerships. The fund will deliver research and innovation realized by working internationally. We'll try and tackle global challenges and develop future technologies which affect us all. It will contribute towards the UN's SDGs through those international partnerships. We will aim to create collaborations that are agile and work to help countries create robust R&D systems. And ultimately, a lot of this is about relationships. It's about academics and businesses and innovators working together in relationships that create products and services that benefit us all across the globe. So that's the ISPF's objectives. Its thematic priorities, you can see here: healthy people, animals and plants, transformative technologies, a resilient planet, and tomorrow's talent as well. And just a little bit more detail on some of those in terms of what this looks like for the future. And I think obviously number 6 is really important for today's conversation around circular economy, waste management and reduction. But you can also see there some of the really big themes coming out on climate, on disease and agriculture. Particularly disease is something that's affected us all in the last few years, and something that we should prepare for the future as well. AI, a really big topic at the minute that again will affect us all globally. Genomics and synthetic biology in the biospace as well. So lots of future operations for collaboration between the UK and Thailand and other nations as well, working on some really, really big, important topics for all our futures. And then if you want more further information about this, I'm going to ask Bank to just wave his hand in the room. So Bank is part of our Economic and Sustainable Development team. He is our Science Innovation Advisor here at the British Embassy in Bangkok. If you want more information on any of what we've just said, including some of those partnership funds, please do grab Bank today or online, I guess, in terms of asking him any questions that you might have. And I think that's all from me, unless I think we've got 1 minute on my counter here. So unless there are any quick questions from the audience or online.
Actually, I'll just ask a quick question. So you said there's a fund, the ISTF, is that correct?
Yes, there is. Let me just go back. So it's the ISPF.
ISPF. Yeah, so who's this fund available for, targeted at? Like, for example, if I'm doing something sustainable or startup in Bangkok, can I collaborate with you?
So Bank is the real expert on all of this, but I will say that I think it's available for researchers, academics who are looking to tackle these sorts of challenges. There will be, I suspect, continual opening of opportunities to bid into the funding, and Bank clearly is the person who knows the detail of when those opportunities will arise, what their topics are likely to be, and I think this is just an early sense of what those topics are. But really, if you are a researcher, an academic, a business that's interested in working in these areas and collaborating internationally with the UK, talk to Bank in the breaks, grab his card, and that will be a really good way for you to learn more about those opportunities when they arise.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Ben.